Akari.
Hey! What the heck?
Akari.
Oh, the title call. This video is...
Warner Brothers is for commentary purposes. Please understand and thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Welcome back to our review series of the October Halloween specials. In this video, we'll all be reviewing regular show Terror Tales at the Park. Let's get started!
Spoiler alert!
Terror Tales of the Park 1. Mordecai and Rigby are helping Pops with cleaning his room, telling him what things he should keep and other things he should trash. When they stumble onto a shoebox, they open it and find out it is a wax doll. Pops recognizes it as Percy, his favorite toy from his childhood. Mordecai and Rigby are instantly creeped out by the doll after Pops demonstrate one of Percy's phrases, "I'm gonna draw on your face," and insists that Pops should throw it away. Pops agrees once the dealers state that it's not cool to play with dolls. The next day, Mordecai and Rigby find Pops on the playground sway with black markers all over his face. Pop then gleefully tells the dealer of his playdate with Percy. Rigby reminds Pops that he wasn't supposed to throw Percy away. But Pops states that he tried already and it didn't work. Thinking that Pops isn't trying to throw away the doll himself, Mordecai and Rigby decide to do it for him. Back at the house, Mordecai and Rigby hear a commotion coming from upstairs and immediately interpret it as Pops throwing over a fit over being Percy gone. When the noises continue, the duo decides to investigate and find Percy harshly throwing Pops' taste at him and having a constant desire to mark on Pop's face. Mordecai busts through the door and temporarily subdues Percy before the doll rushes out of the room. The trio decides to pursue Percy and stop him. The three hear Percy running through the basement and head down there with a baseball bat. But at the moment, Mordecai was knocked out, as well as Rigby, by Percy, who was using a shovel as an attacking weapon, leaving Pops to fight Percy. The doll attempts to get Pops to hand him the marker, which Pops grabbed from him after their earlier struggle. Pops is then left to face his fears and go against Percy. The doll then charges but is stopped when Pops kicks him into a nearby furnace, where Percy burns to death. Pops then checks on Mordecai and Rigby, who regain consciousness and are glad to see that Pops has gotten rid of Percy himself. Percy then jumps from the flames in a surprise attack but collapses as if he's being weakened from the flames. The scene cuts back to Pops, who had just finished telling the story. So Mordecai, Rigby, Skips, Muscleman, and High Five Ghost are displeased with Pops' not-so-scary tale. He remains oblivious to his fact and states that Percy's scariest trait was the unusual desire to mark on things. This leaves Muscle saying that Pop's story was lame.
Oh yeah!
Muscleman and High Five Ghost begin by walking back to their RV and are then caught in the fog. Muscleman then trips over a rock in the fog and he becomes frustrated, so he throws the rock and hears a noise believing he hit his RV, and rushes to see that it was a different RV. So Muscleman and High Five Ghost then get an idea by sending the RV to the crash pit. Muscleman then contacts Scotty to get a group of people to see if the RV hit the crash pit. Next, Muscleman attempts to open the door, but he has a difficult time opening it. So he opens the door and he sees ghosts coming out, causing High Five Ghost to ask, "What was that?" Muscleman replies, saying it's probably just the wind. They then enter the RV, go into the driver's seat, find the keys, and they turn on the RV. While driving, they begin to see 3 ghosts appear right where they stand. The ghosts then grab High Five Ghost, and Muscle Man then asks who they were. The ghosts explain that they are an 80s metal rock band called Skull Punch and are very pissed at Muscle Man for trying to crash their resting place into the crash pit. However, Muscle Man decides to take action and headbutts one of the members, not before saying his "my mom" jokes in the process, and kicks him. He then proceeds to help High Five Ghost, but is punched in the face and grabbed once again. He then begins by apologizing to the group to never bother them again. However, the leader says it's too late and is going to see the crash pit with him and High Five Ghost still in the RV. And, desperate to think, Muscle Man then says that you need to put a show before crashing the RV. The people who will call them lame, and hearing this, the lead member decides to put a show for the audience, but they're being jeered at. Muscle Man dislikes their music so much that he gets into their RV to crash it. He then sees a cinder block and then throws it at the acceleration pedal, causing the RV along with Skull Punch to fall down the pit and are killed, falling along by a nuke that also kills the audience. Muscle Man and High Five Ghost are then seen ascending from the crash pit while Muscle Man is glad that the terrible music has finally ended and then realizes that he is a ghost as well and is disappointed. But he tells High Five Ghost that it was the best crash pit ever. It's Halloween night, and Mordecai is dressed as a dad with his 5 fake children, a scam to get a buttload of candy. After being caught red-handed by one woman, he quickly escapes the scene. Rigby, dressed as a robber, then comes out of the bushes trying to trick-or-treat, but horrifies the woman. Mordecai wants to turn in for the night until the 2 approaches an ancient and creepy house. Rigby wants this to be his last house. So Rigby goes in the house and he knocks on the door where the porch light on the house shuts off. Rigby, enraged, eggs the house against Mordecai's warnings. The house turns out to be owned by a vengeful wizard who comes out of the house and he puts a curse on Rigby. The next day, Rigby is nervous about what the wizard did to him. Then things start happening to him. He suddenly grows a house-number plague, as well as a doorknob on his chest, and his tail transforms into a chimney. As he and Mordecai exit the house, Rigby starts inflating, thus immobilizing him. Mordecai goes to send Rigby's apologies to the wizard, but once again, he acts like he is not home. At the park, Rigby is transformed fully into a house, but while the gang's inside, the phone rings and the wizard states that the transformation is just the beginning of Rigby's punishment. Benson interrupts him, and the wizard vows that all the park employees will pay just as much as Rigby will. And everyone takes refuge inside the Rigby house, and they all lie in wait, with each one of them holding a different weapon. Muscle Man is on the porch when a black car drives up. The door opens, but nobody emerges. Muscle Man is taunted and pulled into the woods by an unseen force, his shotgun blast lighting up the night as he's dragged away. He comes back inside, but he has been skinned alive. The disconnected phone rings and High Five Ghost picks it up, despite everyone's warnings, and is sucked into the phone, liquefied, and sprayed out of the speaker. The wizard, still unable to be seen, throws Mordecai against the bookshelf, knocking him unconscious, and then he breaks Skip's crossbow, and then he pushes Skips up into the fireplace and shoots the flame up after him, incinerating him. Benson is found in the bathroom, and he screams like a banshee and drowned when flushed down the toilet. Benson is standing on the bed in his room, Pops is standing on the bed in his room, and is pulled into a dresser, which then disappears. Mordecai is the last one left of the group and readies himself to defend, but is decapitated by an unseen force. Rigby, in the form of a house, is the only one alive. The wizard then teaches Rigby a lesson by egging him, much to Rigby's surprise, and finishes him off by cracking a giant egg on him, crushing and drowning him. In the end, it turns out it was a made-up story by Rigby. With his story, he seemed to leave everyone terrified, except for Muscle Man, who is instead disappointed. And Rigby's response that it isn't over, and then reveals himself to be the wizard in disguise. Everyone screams as the wizard rushes towards the screen and screams Happy Halloween, leaving everybody's fate unknown. Terror Tales of the Park 2. Like before, it contained 3 Halloween-themed stories. The park gang are on their way to a party, but they are hopelessly lost. To pass the time, Mordecai and Rigby offered to tell scary stories, but Benson objects, saying that Pops can't handle scary stories, especially after last time, but Pops dismisses the notion. So, Mordecai and the others, along with Mordecai's Uncle Steve, are at the bowling alley, playing through a game. Uncle Steve did not play, and everyone else wanted to go home after they finished, as Uncle Steve was creeping them all out. But Mordecai managed to convince them to play one more game. So after loaning Uncle Steve $5, as he was short on money to be able to pay for the game, after he purchased a light-up bowling tie, Mordecai starts dancing in excitement, and he ends up bumping into Uncle Steve, whose tie gets dragged into ball return, killing him. And after Uncle Steve's funeral, Mordecai begins seeing Uncle Steve's ghosts everywhere, due to the guilt he felt for being involved with his death. So Uncle Steve's ghost finally shows itself for real. And then all of a sudden, he chases Mordecai and later Rigby all the way to his gravesite, before revealing he just wanted to return the $5 whereas Mordecai lent him. And then Mordecai takes the money back. And so Uncle Steve's ghost takes himself back in the graveyard. The story turns out to frighten Pops, and Benson was about to shut down the storytelling before Mordecai gets a call from Margaret, who says that she and Eileen are at the party and asks if they're inside. Mordecai mentions that they aren't there yet and that they're in the middle of nowhere. He then tells her that they're telling scary stories, and Margaret says she has one of her own. After Mordecai puts her on the speakerphone, Margaret begins telling her story. Mordecai, Rigby, Margaret, and Eileen are going to the movies. They try using the cart as Margaret's car was at the repair store, but Benson and Skips commandeered it to patrol the park for hooligans. Eileen calls a cab to drive them over, but a mysterious bus arrives before the taxi does. They board the bus, which turns out to be a party bus. As the bus moves forward, everyone on the bus starts aging, and then everything falls into place. The bus that they are on is a supernatural vehicle, which affects everyone's time. The group attempts to get the bus stopped, but everything they try breaks before Mordecai puts it on reverse. They think they're okay, but now they start de-aging rapidly, and they find a hatch on top of the bus and to climb out as if they were now babies. But even if they all jump off as celebration, they continue to disappear into dust. Margaret's story also frightens Pops, and Benson once again tries to shut the storytelling down, but Skips ends up crashing the van, as he was too busy trying to defuse the situation to notice a truck heading towards them. They end up avoiding the truck, only to crash later though, as they ride in the truck on the way to the party. Mordecai and Rigby manage to convince Benson to let them tell one more story, but Benson decides to take the reins of this one. So, Mordecai and Rigby are tasked with wallpapering the entire house after a hole is shown in the wall outside of the room. A TV, which was in the hallway for unknown reasons, turns onto a commercial for Jan the Wallpaper Man, who offers to do his next wallpapering job for free. The two are reluctant at first, questioning the commercial's legitimacy, but are somehow convinced after Muscle Man mentions that he once bought hand grenade replicas from a TV ad that turned out to be real. Mordecai and Rigby then agree to call him. Later, the expert arrives, and Mordecai and Rigby go to their room and play video games. Eventually, Mordecai and Rigby leave to check on Jan's progress, but everything goes wrong when Jan starts wallpapering a scared Pops to the wall. Mordecai and Rigby rescue Pops, but hear Benson's distinct cries of help and are forced to find their way through a constantly shifting maze of wallpaper to rescue him and the others. The room seemingly gets smaller as they go along, thanks to an optical illusion, and they are eventually trapped in an area. Rigby starts panicking as he is seemingly claustrophobic and starts tearing at the walls, ripping holes in them to reveal an exit. The three begin ripping the walls until they eventually enter a cave where Benson, Muscle Man, Skips, and a delivery guy are tied to the ceiling with wallpaper. It is revealed that Jan was actually a giant spider that uses wallpaper as an equivalent to organic silk for spider webs, and it proceeds to tie Pops onto the ceiling. Mordecai and Rigby free the group by throwing rocks, which opens the wallpaper.
Unfortunately, Skips and Pops are injured in the fall. Skips falls on his legs, breaking his ankles, and Pops falls on his side, breaking his arm. And Muscle Man is eaten alive by the spider. Mordecai and Rigby are forced to destroy the spider since Benson said that they hired him. They fire him. Rigby says that the spider is going to kill them, but Benson says it's not the problem as he carries Skips, Pops, and the delivery guy away. The two finally manage to defeat the spider by using a package of real grenades that the delivery man was attempting to deliver to Muscle Man. But Rigby questions how far away they're supposed to be before the grenades explode. And they explode, destroying the house, the spider, and themselves. So Mordecai and Rigby begin to defend themselves against Benson's portrayal of the duo, saying that they shouldn't have acted that dumb in a situation like that, basically labeling Benson's story as a personal attack against them. Rigby then wants to tell a story about how much stupid Benson is as they reach the party's location, but they end up getting into a shoving match, leading Benson to bumping into the tow truck driver, who crashes into a tree next door. So Margaret, Eileen, and the rest of the party guests rush out and ask if they are okay, when it is evident that none of them survived the crash, revealing that they are now ghosts. Benson gets very angry that Rigby ended up killing them all, except High Five Ghost, and fires him. But Rigby claims that he can't be fired since he's dead. Despite having been killed, everyone else heads inside for the party, including Benson after mumbling to himself why he even bothers.
Terror Tales in the Park 3. Hey! This episode starts with two kids throwing eggs at Skip's garage. Benson drives up and comes out of his car to see what they have done. In response, the two kids start to throw eggs at Benson and then run away with the candy. Shortly after, he chases the kids and he starts screaming like a banshee. The main story then shifts to their house, where the guys are having a Halloween party. The park workers, minus Benson, are listening to the ending of Thomas's bad scary story, which was about a maniac. Pops comes in and asks what they're doing. Skips tell them that they're telling scary stories, and the person who has the best story gets all the candy, and the one who tells the worst story will have to wear their costume until Thanksgiving dinner. Pops joins them, and Rigby adds his candy onto the pile and starts to tell his story. The story opens on Mordecai eating cereal when Rigby comes in with a large box, and he tells him that he has saved enough money to buy a bed. After 13 hours of trying to assemble the bed with Skip's help, he lies down and turns on the TV in his room, and he hears a reporter about a murderer, Johnny Allenranch, who has turned into a bed when trying to escape from the police. Rigby is horrified to find out it's his bed. So Johnny Allenranch, in his bed form, starts attacking Rigby. Meanwhile, everyone is playing cards in the kitchen. Mordecai is ignored by Rigby shouting. He tries to ignore it, but gets more angrier. Everyone goes to Rigby and finds Rigby with Johnny Allenranch. Benson saves Rigby from getting killed with the power of negotiation by giving Johnny a job and safety from the cops. The next day, Johnny starts work, and when Rigby calls the other park workers except for Benson to attack Johnny with axes, killing him. For doing this, Benson decides to give Rigby all the promotions and high-fives him, much to the dismay of Muscle Man, ending the story. But at the end of the story, everyone agrees except for Muscle Man, who says he could do better than that, to which Rigby tells him to put the candy where his mouth is. Then Muscle Man asks Rigby if he wants to eat the candy. Rigby's answer to add his candy is to add his candy to the pile, and then after that, Muscle Man begins telling his story. The second story starts, being told by Muscle Man, himself, Mordecai, Rigby, and High Five Ghosts are smashing pumpkins that Benson decides all of them to do. Rigby and Muscle Man claim that it's the best job that Benson ever gave them. After smashing all the little pumpkins, the camera pans to the right and shows a large, giant pumpkin. Rigby questions how are they going to smash that last one. Muscle Man says that he has an idea, and they all go into the golf cart and plow right through it. They kept driving forward and enter a foggy area deep in the forest, and it turns out that they are in an abandoned pumpkin patch, and Muscle Man claims this party just got a whole lot pumpkinier. Mordecai doesn't seem so sure about it and starts asking if they should really smash these pumpkins. Muscle Man claims that they should because Benson said all the pumpkins. Not shortly after, Rigby finds two pumpkin people hung up on two poles. Muscle Man then starts making really lame insults to the male pumpkin. Rigby finds a rock entombed on the ground that says, "Smash all you want, but leave these two pumpkin lovers alone." Which just gets the guys tempted to smash them even more. They eventually do it. They start throwing rocks at the female, making her face fall down to the ground. And Muscle Man jumps and smashes her head with his behind, leaving orange marks on the male. Soon, Fives goes for the dude, and just as he's about to grab his head, the male comes to life and holds Fives' arms and says, "You smashed my hot wife. Now you will reap what you've sown," with flames bursting out of his eyes. The guides tell Fives to just phase through it. But soon the pumpkin turns Fives into a solid pumpkin, yelling, "You boys want to smash some pumpkins? Let's smash some pumpkins!" Then throws the pumpkin Fives on the ground, making him splattered, and the male collects the seeds. With the remaining three, all run away separately. Mordecai hides behind a mini-tractor with a pumpkin looking in his direction, but Rigby creates a diversion, shouting, "Mordecai, where are you?" Then the pumpkin goes after him, and just as Mordecai was about to move, he bumps into the pumpkin. He snarls and grabs Mordecai's ankle, turning him into a pumpkin just like Fives. It then says, "I hope you like squash," and splatters Mordecai, collecting his seeds. Then Rigby is seen running towards a barn and closes the door behind him. But just a few seconds later, the male finds him. Rigby runs up a ladder and looks down at the long distance. He has no choice but to jump, but he does so, and the pumpkin catches his tail, turns him into a pumpkin. Before dropping him, he says, "Just in time for fall!" and then drops him and collects the seeds for him. The last survivor, Muscle Man, runs through a cornfield with the wind blowing and the pumpkin laughing evilly. He starts panicking and moving his arms in circles, and eventually bumps into the pumpkin. Muscle Man tries to slip his way out, saying that the man will find someone else, but eventually he gets turned into a pumpkin and gets dropped and gets his seeds collected. The man walks back to his original pole, throws all the seeds he took, and says that'll teach him. Sometime later, an actual pumpkin patch comes and a little boy spots the guys who have all turned into pumpkins. They start arguing who should and who shouldn't be picked. The man quietly laughs evilly, knowing that he has avenged his wife. At the end of the story, the guys disagree on Muscle Man's story, but he says that it's supposed to be ironic. Rigby says that Muscle Man's lucky that Thomas's story was such a pile, or he'd be stuck in that costume for weeks. Skips asks Muscle Man what he's supposed to be. Muscle Man says he's peanut butter on bread, where he even used the real deal as he scoops a little peanut butter off his stomach and asks if anyone's hungry. So Mordecai finds it disgusting. The park guys are having a meeting with Benson after they get all the pumpkins and signs set up. He says that there's going to be a 200-year-old poltergeist in the house at night. Everybody thinks that it's going to be awesome. But Benson says otherwise. He explains how a long time ago, a man named Jebediah Townhouse used to say things that people used to say back in the 1980s, such as bogus, righteous, and wigging out. Since he was so ahead of his time, the townsfolk believed he was a witch. Before they could kill him, he infused his soul to the house that the park crew lives in right now, silently waiting for 200 years to return. After the story is told, everyone thinks that Benson just wants the house to himself. And they also think it doesn't make sense, but Benson is really serious and leaves the house in his compact car. Now Muscle Man says that everyone should go to the house at night and see who could stay the longest. Mordecai says that they all should pull in $20 and the winner gets all the money. Skips didn't participate. So it was Mordecai, Rigby, Muscle Man, High Five, Ghost, and Pops. Later that night, Pops tried going to sleep and he heard hip-hop coming from his phonograph. He turned off the music and Jebediah spoke to Pops. And Pops runs downstairs screaming.
Then the power went out, and there was a loud banging at the door. Pops holds a flashlight while Mordecai and Rigby defend themselves, and Pops with golf clubs. At the door, there is a shadow that resembles Jebediah, and they open and start attacking him. But it is revealed to be Muscle Man in a raincoat with fives under a garbage pail, therefore making him look like a townhouse in the shadows. Then they decide to play a board game with Pops once again freaking out, claiming that he saw Jebediah on the board game. But once again, nobody sees anything. And Fives and Muscleman get hungry and head to the kitchen for the house supply of burritos. But Jebediah confronts them as the fridge itself then morphs into the oven and says, "Why you all up in my grill?" Then the two get burned alive and baked into brownies. Mordecai finds the two human desserts and says that the remaining three would like to leave now. But Rigby disagrees and says that they'll get more money for the winner. So they think that they should try to stick it out. Then Jebediah morphs from the board game that they were playing. They try to be scared by the 80s phrases that Townhouse keeps saying to them to get them bored. But not too soon he begins to chase them throughout the house. As they try to run to the front door, Jebediah appears and sticks out his long tongue, and the trio run up the stairs but turns into Jebediah's mouth. Therefore, his tongue makes it hard to run upward. So Mordecai and Rigby hang on the ceiling columns, but Pop slips and falls into Jebediah's mouth. The remaining two run up the stairs, but one of the windows at the end of the hallway turns into a floating, spitting, shredding head. The two attempt to open the window, but it's stuck. They climb up the ladder to the attic, making the floating head explode. Then the columns on the ceiling turn into Jebediah's hand and ask for the $100. Mordecai and Rigby find an open window on the roof, and the roof turns to the townhouse's head. He shakes it to him, and Mordecai and Rigby jump off. But before the two can reach the ground, Jebediah's hand catches them, and he says, "Whoop, there it is!" and eats them. All three stories were told, and the gang decided that Benson had the best story and he gets all the candy. But Thomas, over when things told the worst story ever, has to wear his pizza costume until Thanksgiving dinner. Benson thanks for liking his story and tells him that the whole thing is true. He told them that Jebediah Townhouse was real and swore that he would come back in 200 years. But it wasn't before he signed the deed to Mr. Mallard. At the house, Jebediah should have been there 5 minutes ago, but Benson's watch was fast. Shortly after exploding this, Scotty, who was munching away on snacks for the party, gets eaten by Jebediah, who morphed from the snacks table. So everyone screams and Jebediah's body turns into the house and proceeds to dance, finishing the special stating, "Happy Halloween, homies!"
Terror Tales of the Park 4. Muscle Man tries to scare off two children who come to the house trick-or-treating, but fails to do so. But as soon as he removes his mask, the children get scared and run away screaming. Muscle Man then enters the house and tells the park workers that there will be no trick-or-treaters. Benson then asks fellow park workers what they want to do. Muscle Man suggests telling scary stories. Mordecai says that they do that every year, and then Rigby suggests that they should do something really scary. After a couple of guesses, skips, read a few genre films, Pops, go to bed early, he suggests going to a haunted house, commenting, "Those are the scariest." And Muscle Man replies, "You know who else is the scariest? My mom!" Everyone is annoyed with Muscle Man making another "my mom" joke, but they soon realize that none of them, not even my high five ghosts, have even met her. So they finish their Halloween night traveling all the way to Mrs. Sorenstein's house to meet her. Though they are forced to tell scary stories while they go there, Muscle Man won't introduce them to her. As Muscle Man drives the crew, Pops volunteers to tell the first story. Muscle Man, dressed as Mars, tells Pops, dressed as the sun, a joke. But then Skips, dressed as Jupiter, tells him that it's time. Benson, dressed as Saturn, tells them about the Halloween tradition, and that whoever is last, it's their turn to be sacrificed to the whole. The reason for doing this is an act of survival due to a mysterious fog that appeared, rendering them unable to leave the park. Pops begs Benson not to do it because of what happened to High Five Ghost the last year. Benson proceeds on and pulls Skip first. Then Mordecai dresses the Earth, Muscle Man, who proceeds to rip out his underwear in the costume.
Benson himself and then Rigby, dressed as Neptune. Pops tells them about the hole and how they are feeding him, pleasing them not to put him there. Benson temporarily agrees with Pops, and then shoves him into the hole. He then tries to push him in the hole, but he can't due to the size of Pops' head, asphyxiating the creature. 6 months later, Pops is still living, and Muscle Man tells the group, who are now enjoying some tea, about the joke being told Pops. When Pops asks where they got this tea, Mordecai reveals to Pops that, much to their own embarrassment, when they let the fog, nothing bad actually happened. Benson further reveals that the fog was all in their heads, explaining it to be more of a psychological, existential kind of fog. Skips elaborates that the fog represented in the group's whole fear of the outside and what lies beyond there. The whole group then laughs for this revelation. After the ending, Muscle Man is not satisfied with the result and then threatens to turn the car around. Not willing to accept that, Benson begins to tell a scary story that he had come up with.
For unknown reasons, Mordecai and Rigby are dead. Benson tells the remaining park employees an obituary about the two and how they were his friends. Skips and Muscle Man realize that there was only one job that Benson forgot, and tell him to meet them after the meeting. Muscle Man tells them that they have to fire them, despite Benson telling him that he had not seen their memorial and he hand-dug their grave. Skips further tells him that if he does not fire them, they will haunt the house forever. Over a period of 3 months, he tries to fire them, only to get scared every time. He thinks he's finally got them with their video games, but fails. Then Benson remembers Mr. Mallard telling him that the worker is not technically fired until he deletes them from their employee database. Benson races to the computer while trying to avoid the two. He sees his office in a ghostly tornado and sees the computer. He tries dauntingly to get there until the duo try to intervene. Benson shoves them away and tries to remove them from the database. However, pop-ups of the two block him from successfully firing him. He deletes them and finally fires the two, excited about his success. Just as his celebration is starting, his soul is sucked out. Mordecai and Rigby tell him that he's dead, not them. They tell him about how he died. He was hooking up Halloween decorations when suddenly, the two show him a scary mask. Benson, while on a ladder, falls off and dies from blunt force trauma. Rigby tells him that he's been haunting the house for 3 months. Benson tells him that they've ruined his so-called office until Mordecai backs him up, telling him that it's their office now, and Rigby tells him that they got promoted. The scenery changes into a graveyard, and Mordecai shows Benson his grave. By the end, the park workers aren't too thrilled with that ending as it was to be expected, so they eventually arrive at a trailer park where Muscle Man's mother lives. Then they head to the top of the hill where her trailer's supposed to be. As they are all hiking up, Muscle Man annoys everyone except Weiss with another "my mom" joke. Rigby decides to help pass the time by telling the third and final scary story. The scene shows Mordecai, Rigby, CJ, and Eileen watching a movie called Heads You're Dead. After the movie is over, Mordecai and Rigby scoff about how terrible the movie was, right after Eileen's personal opinion on the movie. Rigby shows them a VHS tape called Triple Threat, and tells them about the story of it, dating back to the 1970s, where 3 members of a company think about a VHS tape that could make or break them. One of them suggests a hack-and-slash movie called Werewolves, another suggests a black and white film called The Barber, and the other suggests a Japanese film called Smile. And out of nowhere, a ball of lightning strikes the table, fusing all 3 VHS tapes into one, called Triple Threat. They then play the tape, their bodies are sucked into the movie. Rigby then tells him that according to the legend, no one has survived the entire VHS tape, which Rigby bought for $1.99 with free shipping. CJ tells Rigby to put the tape in. After only a few minutes of it, the power goes out. Mordecai notices that the VCR is still running. Rigby sees inside the VCR, and a werewolf hand not only sucks him, but the rest of them. They then see the VHS team in werewolves. Skeletons with clothes still intact and a werewolf eating the third. The four run into a house and hide. They run away. They then see Wyatt, who is getting a haircut by the barber, who told him to meet him at an insane asylum. After hearing his demonic laughter, the five then run up a spiral staircase and go into a so-called morgue. Wyatt then assumes that the barber may be nice and not trying to kill him. Mordecai then begs to go with him, telling him that his hair is fine, but Wyatt ignores him and goes anyway, getting his head chopped off. After going out the door, they then encounter the third and final movie, Smile, where they see two schoolgirls, and one of them tells another that she is lonely due to everyone being scared of her. When they meet, the wide-open-eyed swallows the other whole, and then tells the fourth they want to play with them. After CJ tells Rigby that she'll never forgive them, Mordecai tells them that they are in the credits. They successfully escape the movie. However, the VHS tape is destroyed and the ball lightning fuses all of their butts together. Rigby curses the triple threat tape. After Rigby's story, Muscle Man says that he never knew that Rigby was a master of ball lightning. After the stories are told, they finally see the trailer that Muscle Man's mother lives. Rigby just wants to see his mother and leave. Muscle Man tells him that he has to tell her that she has company because she doesn't like surprise guests. Pop thinks that Muscle Man's mom that the foam tombstones are nice. But Muscle Man tells him that those aren't foam and that they are real, much to the dismay and disappointment of Pops. Muscle Man tells them that she's ready to see them. Miss Sorenstein shows up in a hockey mask scaring them. Mordecai tells Muscle Man that this is a prank, thinking that he was in the mask until the real Muscle Man comes out. Muscle Man laughs in delight, telling them that the trailer was not where his mom lives. He then says that this was all planned out so that Muscle Bro was here the whole time until he comes out scaring them, including Muscle Man. The person in the hockey mask tells him, "You know who else likes scary people?" And then taking off the hockey mask to reveal that it was indeed Muscle Man's mom and not John Sorenstein scaring everyone. They then run out in horror. Muscle Man's mom comes out creating a large gap in the trailer. She then tells them that they forgot their candy. She then breaks the fourth while telling the audience Happy Halloween and eats the candy. She unzips the costume and tells the audience that it gets Muscle Man and Muscle Bro every year.
Terror Tales of the Park 5.
The episode starts with Muscle Man, High Five Ghost, Thomas, and Johnny Skydiver launching pumpkins with a catapult. In the house, Eileen talks to a broom and Audrey takes a picture of quips while everyone else mingles. Moments later, Muscle Man and High Five Ghost come into Benson's office where Benson tells him and everyone else already inside about the wishing machine. Everyone looks disinterested, but Benson insists that they must stay and that he would not let his deposit go to waste to demonstrate. Benson wishes that he could motivate Mordecai and Rigby at work. Rocky, the wishmaker, says, "A hard worker is all you desire. So to their backside let us add some fire." Rocky's and Benson's eyes glow red as he laughs maniacally. And the first story begins. Mordecai and Rigby are seen sitting on the couch watching TV. There is an advertisement for a salad guillotine, off with your head of lettuce, that Mordecai and Rigby suddenly want. Benson comes in and makes Mordecai and Rigby do their work. Suddenly, another commercial airs where the same person from the previous ad is advertising a puppet named Mr. Bossman. The phone number is shown after Benson tells the TV to show it, and he calls in to order a puppet. Throughout the story, every time the duo is caught slacking and Benson uses Mr. Bossman to tell them to get back to work, they feel creeped out. And he always insists that it's not him telling them it's the puppet. At one point, Mr. Bossman insults Mordecai about relationships and Rigby about his stuttering when he tries to stand up for him. As Benson walks away, saying he is a good boss, the puppet turns to look at him. Uh-oh. Later on, while Benson is asleep, Mr. Bossman keeps telling him how to sleep and he complies until he is told to pack up and never come back. Now Benson is awake and sees Mr. Bossman fall onto the floor. Annoyed, he goes over to pick him up, only to have him turn his head 180 degrees and yells, "This is my house now!" causing Benson to scream like a banshee and throw him against the wall. And Mr. Bossman says Benson doesn't need his job because he was the one motivating the workers and he had to support his family who are standing at the window. Mr. Bossman's head spins wildly as Benson runs away, trying to crack his head between the door, which doesn't work fully. Eventually, Benson makes it to the house and runs in on Mordecai and Rigby using the guillotine and yells that he's trying to kill him. Right after that, the puppet launches off of himself through the glass of window and onto Benson, who screams, "Get that dummy off of me!" The duo try kicking him off, which doesn't work, so they then suggest using the guillotine. Benson launches Mr. Bossman right into the opening, and the puppet screams that they don't have guts, or chimichangas to be specific, to drop the blade, but being proven wrong when Benson walks over and does it himself. The head is still talking about escape, while Benson compliments the duo on their quick thinking and smarts, which, funny enough, was the scary part of the story for him. Benson snaps back to it, saying, "I'd never do something like that," while his eyes are normal again. Mordecai asks him what happened, and he explains what happened and wants to stop, but Pop steps up and makes his wish to travel. The park gang is seen in the courthouse on Halloween for jury duty, and they are trying a werewolf for murder. He tries to convince them he's innocent, but they have evidence he murdered. Pops asks to use the restroom, to which the judge grants him permission. John asks as well and gets permission as well. The judge and the guard wonder if that was a good idea. John asks for toilet paper and uses a whole roll, much to Pop's horror, and then tries to attack him and escapes to go to London. The guard enters and sees Pops has turned into a werewolf. He tries to explain, but the guard uses a whistle, causing Pops to run into a wall and fall unconscious. When he comes to grips, he sees he has been turned into a werewolf and has been framed. Pops explains to his friends what happened, and they believe him, and they still wish to arrest him to have fun with it. He attacks a guard and escapes, but the people turn into an angry mob and chase him. He arrives at the airport. He escapes the mob by entering a plane and sees it's the same one John is on. They show no hard feelings for each other, and the passengers are revealed to be werewolves. So Pops dances happily after returning to reality. Mordecai asks if Racky is scary or lame, to which the machine says he's scary. High Five Ghost then decides to make his wish, albeit reluctantly, and Benson says go ahead. Five says anyone can go, but Rigby insists. He wishes to meet up with Celia. Fives is seen outside of the apartment complex Celia lives in with a bouquet of flowers in hand. He refuses to take the steps when he sees the address is on the 36th floor, so he decides to take the elevator. He encounters a repairman, adding the finishing touches on the elevator, and tells Fives he just finished after the ghost asks. He tells him to have fun, and Fives tells his plan as the door closes. Suddenly the elevator stops, but while scared, he doesn't panic and sees the intercom and asks for help. The repairman asks if he wants to listen to music, and Five says yes, but the music is creepy. Five asks to change it. It becomes romantic, and Five asks it to turn it off, but no answer. Five starts to worry when the repairman says sorry as the smooth jazz was loud and says that it should be working, but it suddenly gets out of control. The flowers get damaged, but he makes it to his destination, and the repairman once again says sorry for pressing the wrong button. He tells him to have fun. He encounters Celia and gives her the flowers, but she is happy despite being wrecked. She asks who he was talking to. He says that he was chatting with the repairman, and he recommends getting his email. Celia tells him he died 40 years prior. They joke until he remembers the elevator. They check to see the repairman reveal his ghostly true self, scaring Fives, and he grabs him. Much to the couple's horror, and the elevator crashes, killing both Fives and the undead repairman. Fives is seen panicking as Muscle Man runs over and snaps him out of it. Fives says it felt real. Benson believes that they have had enough for one evening, but Rigby decides to make his wish, saying he was popular, and Racky agrees, but says this is one for all to see, and everyone pulls in. We see Mordecai and Rigby trick-or-treating, and everyone loves Rigby's costume. Soon some teenagers arrive and tease him, causing the two to realize the costume wasn't done yet. They also mock Mordecai, but Rigby defends him, saying it's cold. The teens tell them to get some candy for the creepy house. They reluctantly do so. But Rigby scares Mordecai and they get some, which impress the teenagers. Soon the door starts opening and the teenagers back slowly. Mordecai and Rigby laugh, unaware that the two green hands reaching out. The teenagers run as the hands grab them. The hands are revealed to belong to a woman dressed as a witch. She interrogates them, saying that they could take more candy, and they nervously try to answer, but she gives them chocolate shaped like body parts. They start eating some, and she jokes a bit. They compliment her chocolate, and she explains that it's homemade. She activates a machine, but they get scared and stop eating when they see Mordecai is turning into chocolate, thus revealing that the woman is actually a witch. The witch tosses Mordecai into her machine and starts pulling him in. Rigby tries to save them, but pulls the chocolate leg. He tries to escape and but he starts turning to chocolate. Everyone starts eating him, even the teenagers join in, and he smiles after they call him the greatest. When reality comes back, everyone is completely horrified, and Rigby states he didn't intend for it. The staff agrees that Bracky is scary. They soon find him gone, and they see him trying to escape, that he stole all their stuff. The fellow wishmakers tell him to hurry to the van, and they are revealed to be a thieving crew. He sees the gang chase him and decides to use a catapult to escape, but backfires. So fortune-telling machines drive off in horror. The park staff joke about it, but Bracky gets the last laugh because he says Benson won't give his deposit back. So Benson screams and suddenly reveals that he's actually in store before he rented him. An employee walks off and asks how his wish went. Benson says it was terrible and unsurprisingly refuses to rent it of fear of not getting his deposit back. He then decides to get the streamers. The employee angrily tells Bracky that no one will rent him at all if all he does is scare customers. He suggests the worker should be fired, but is interrupted by being unplugged with the man calling him a dumb rapping robot, thus ending the episode. Now let's get on to the black sheep of the specials. The episode begins inside the dome where Mordecai, Rigby, Benson, Skips, High Five, Ghost, Muscle Man, Pops, and Eileen are already beginning their Halloween party. Soon, Chance, Sure Shot, Toothpick Sally, and Recap Robot enter wearing their Halloween costumes. Chance, Sure Shot informs them that the dome is on autopilot so that they can party without worrying. Benson asks Recap if he is excited for his first Halloween, and Recap responds that he had a fearometer installed for that day. It's currently at -4 fears. When Mordecai asks him, anyone already has a story prepared. So Skip replies that he has one called Fear Planet. Skip's story begins with him, Mordecai, Rigby, and Benson driving in a van when they discover that they are on low fuel. The computer tells him of a nearby planet, a planet that makes your innermost fears come to life. The guys decide to stop there as they didn't really have much of a choice, and they land on Fear Planet. Benson decides to get the gas and walks over to the pump, not believing in his fears being able to come to life. So just then, his only fear, sharks, appear and they bite his arms off. As Benson fills up the gas can, another shark appears and it eats him before he could get the gas back into the van. Skips then volunteers to get the gas can back to the van, and he tries to keep his mind clear so that none of his fears will appear. Skips is doing great until he almost is at the gas pump, when Rigby asks him what he is afraid of. Just in the flying disc freestylers, Skip's greatest fears appear and repeatedly hit them with their frisbees, killing him. Pops then reveals that he's afraid of the dark and the sun starts to go down. So Mordecai manages to get the sun back up by telling Pops to go through the alphabet and name cookies. And Mordecai goes out and closes his eyes and asks Rigby to guide him to the gas can. Right after Mordecai picks up the can, Rigby thinks of his fear, amusement park mascots. Mordecai opens his eyes and sees one standing right now in front of him. He then runs to the van as the fears of Benson and Skips have also appeared due to Rigby not being afraid of them. As Mordecai gets in the car, he then sees Flying Disc Freestyler now having the key, resulting in Pops, Rigby and him staying stuck on the planet. After Skip's story, he adds some more flying disc freestylers had shown up, and they finished off Pops, Rigby, and Mordecai. And Mordecai inquires to the story was really Skip's way of telling them he doesn't like flying disc freestylers. And Skip's comments that they are wobbly and unpredictable. Rigby asks him if Recap has been scared by the story, to which Recap responds that he had gained 2 fears, meaning that the fear meter is currently negative 2 fears. Just as Recap is about to leave, Eileen tells him that she has a story she thinks she will have a hard time turning his back on, leading us into our second story. The story begins with Skips, Muscleman, Mordecai, Rigby, and Eileen wrapping up their trick-or-treating. Mordecai states that he still wants candy, as they mostly receive dental hygiene-related substances, as candy is a major part of who he is. The 5 stumble upon a seemingly abandoned castle where king-size candy bars are apparently being given out inside. So Rigby becomes excited, but then Eileen notices another sign which appears to have read, "Don't Quarantine Umpire Infestation," which excites Rigby even more as he believes baseball games have great snacks, which will give them even more. The group head to the castle and Eileen hesitates for a second and then joins the others. And just as they make their way up the slope, a sharp wind blows a leaf away which obscures the sign. The sign now reads, "Dome Quarantine Vampire Infestation." But the group is unaware that they have already made it to the front entrance. They knock at the door, but when no one answers right away, Rigby invites everyone inside and Eileen begins to have second thoughts. But Rigby refuses to leave without the peanut butter cups. Skips, Mordecai, and Rigby head into the kitchen to research, leaving Eileen and Muscleman behind. Eileen suspects that something isn't right as Muscleman tells her that it reminds him of his mom's place with more mosquitoes. Eileen grows suspicious when he says the word mosquitoes, and Muscleman tries to swat one that lands on his neck, only to discover that it really is a vampire who pulled him into the darkness. This causes Eileen to scream and run to the others. As Skip comments on the single-use kitchenware, Eileen bursts in screaming, barring the door. She tells him that the sign on the gate says vampires, not umpires, as the others aren't easily convinced. Eileen rummages through the closet for garlic, which will weaken the vampires. She manages to find boxes of mashed potatoes, which have garlic inside, and hands them to the others, just as the 2 vampires burst through the door. The garlic turns both vampires into bats, and they are running down the hall when Skips realizes that his box of mashed potatoes contains chives, not garlic, as he is pulled into the darkness as well, leaving Mordecai, Rigby, and Eileen as the only sole survivors. They enter another room filled with weapons, allowing everyone to guard themselves against the horde of vampires. Suddenly, more vampires approach, and Mordecai and Rigby are able to flee as Eileen shoots an arrow at one of them. Rigby finally sees the bowl that contains the king-size candy bars they were promised, and despite Eileen telling him that it's too dangerous, he runs to the bowl to get some from him and Mordecai. Eileen manages to save Rigby as a vampire falls from the ceiling by shooting arrows at him, and another one that nearly bites Mordecai. Rather suspiciously, all vampires morph into bats and they circle around them, surrounding them before they can even escape. As Mordecai is bitten and Eileen is trying to fight them off, Rigby takes out a peanut butter cup, only to tragically discover that they are cup size rather than king size. Just before he and Eileen are bitten, Mordecai, Rigby, Muscleman, Eileen, and Skips, all now vampires, are talking to the other vampires when Mordecai comments that candy no longer tastes good, and the vampire replies that when you're a vampire, the only thing that tastes good is human blood and cashews. As a group of trick-or-treaters ring the doorbell, a vampire asks if they are ready for real tasty treats, to which Mordecai responds, "Are we ever?" And they all turn into bats and fly off, leaving behind a cloud of smoke.
Eileen concludes her story by adding that they had moral indignations of what they were doing to have decided to work out a deal with a local blood bank. Mordecai asks Recap what he thought of it. Recap says that he doesn't have any blood, so he couldn't find an entry point for him in the story, to which Recap responds that his pherometer is stuck at 2. Meanwhile, Benson asks what was going on, Chance Sure Shot tells everyone to head to the bridge and tells them that they're off course. And Toothpick Sally says that something's affecting their path. When Chance Sure Shot says that something's not possible unless there's a collision with a black hole in the mint. The Muscle Man says it's a little scarier than Eileen's story. Sometime later, Rigby says that this is bad and asks them what they're looking at. High Five Ghost tells them that it's a black hole and says that if they don't regain control, they will be pulled into the event horizon in 15 minutes. Pop says that it's horrible and asks them what will happen if they're sucked in a black hole. Recap explains that they'll travel to another part of the universe, and as they approach the singularity, they will be stretched as thin as the strands of spaghetti, where spaghettification, as it were, will become horrible agony and pain forever. And so Rigby begins to tell his third and final story about a roommate. Rigby's story begins with Mordecai pouring out a cereal that only contains one piece of cereal, where Mordecai and Rigby split it and eat it. After Muscleman tells the duo that 8 people who live here, the park decides to put up a flyer for a roommate for $800 a month. The park interviewed various people with no luck until an alien named Shannon arrives. So then the park allows her to stay, but later regret their decision when Sharon creates a chore wheel so she can watch Carter and Briggs. Sick and tired of Shannon's disrespectful behavior, the park decides to kick her out. The first time they try to kick her out, Shannon goes ballistic after Muscleman turns off the TV, stabbing Chance Sure Shot in the process. The gang split up into groups and try to find Shannon. Pops, a recap robot, find a note written by her saying that she is sorry for all the trouble she caused. This turns out to be a joke after Shannon disassembles Recap Robot. After Pops tells the gang what happened, the gang hatch a second plan to get her out. This time, they connect the TV to a cable connected to the cart. When Shannon arrives to watch TV, the guys drive away, taking the TV with them. Shannon chases the gang until they reach the mini-dome's airlock zone. Shannon is now trapped inside and cannot get out. However, she has eaten all of the cables that connect the outer lock door button. So everyone loses hope until Muscleman arrives in a machine and tackles Shannon into space. Mordecai and Rigby are inside the park with the pregnant spider, monkey alien, and Victorian alien watching Carter and Briggs, ending Rigby's story. After Rigby finishes his story, Sure Shot states that he is unable to steer away from the black hole. Upon being sucked into the black hole, everyone finds themselves to be pieces of spaghetti with the exception of Pops, who was a meatball, and are eaten by Neil deGrasse Tyson. And the special ends with the restaurant being swirled away into a black hole, leaving everyone's fate unknown.
Did you know that?
Terror Tales of the Park 1 contains 3 shorts, and it's the first half-hour episode of the series. And it's the first half-hour Halloween special of the series. It's revealed that the park has a giant hole where Muscleman and High Five Ghost wreck cars in, which they call the Crash Pit. However, this wasn't proved to exist until the best burger in the world. A picture of Eileen is revealed to be inside of the house after Rigby turned it into it on the 3rd short, implying he may have feelings for her, but don't like to show it as of this point of the show. The car Muscleman drove into the Crash Pit is a 1977 Ford Limited 2. Terror Tales of the Park 2 was the second half-hour Halloween special of the series. The following October, a 3rd installment was released. Rigby has claustrophobia. However, this wasn't proven canon until Portable Toilet. The guys wore costumes in this episode. Mordecai is Frankenstein, Rigby is a wrestler, Benson is a pirate, Pops is a mummy, Skips is a vampire, Muscleman is Abraham Lincoln, High Five Ghost is wearing a mustache, and Thomas is wearing a black mask. A much darker episode was originally planned, but was removed because of its dark theme. Probably due to the fact it was intended that they were going to hell, where all the characters died in a much darker way than they did in the original version. This was replaced with the current version. It was supposed to end like this. The park crew continued down the traffic while on the freeway. They see victims of a car crash, but when they get a closer look, it looks like Skip's van and the deceased bodies on the ground look like the park crew, which implies they had died after the first crash or second story. One of the paramedics turn around with no face, but he screams at them, and the driver also has a scary face. Benson tries to open the door, but it won't budge. The truck goes faster and a portal opens up, with flames coming out. They all freak out and scream. The driver slams on the gas and they all fall into the portal, with a pumpkin saying Happy Halloween. Terror Tales of the Park 3 is the third half-hour Halloween special of the series. Some of the guests at the Halloween party were Scotty, Eileen, Starla, one of the Guardians of Eternal Youth, Gary, Death's wife, Tecmo, RGB2, and Buttonwillow McButtonwillow. The guys once again wear costumes in this episode. Mordecai is a greaser from the 50s, Rigby is a robot, Benson is a cowboy, Pops is Peter Pan, Skips is a barbarian warrior, Muscleman is peanut butter on bread, High Five Ghost is wearing a foam finger, and Thomas is a slice of pizza, which he has to wear until Thanksgiving in the Thanksgiving special. Terror Tales of the Park 4 marks the fourth installment in the Terror Tales of the Park Halloween special series. The schoolgirl's monster form, muttering, literally translates to Let's Play With Me. I am lonely without you. Muscleman's mom is finally seen for the first time. This episode aired 8 days after Dish Network dropped Cartoon Network and all the other Warner Brothers Discovery-owned channels. Thomas had 2 cameos as a skeleton in the hole and as a guest in Mordecai and Rigby's funeral and Unfinished Business. Both scenarios involve him having no dialogue. Apparently, Benson actually has a cat of his own. CJ and Eileen only appear in Scary Movie Night. During the scene where Mordecai, Rigby, CJ, and Eileen makes it to the credits of the movie, the names they see in the credits are actually the names of the people who work on this show. In this Halloween special, the park workers are not wearing costumes. This does not include the Solar System Planet costumes worn in Pop's story or the monster mask Muscleman wore to scare away the trick-or-treaters. Terror Tales of the Park 5 marks the 5th installment of the Terror Tales of the Park series, and it has 4 stories instead of the usual 3, and the main characters do not tell their stories. During the first commercial break, the TV trailer for a regular show the movie aired. Pops is the only one satisfied with his wish. Going Up is the only story that focuses on just one of the main characters, in this case, High Five Ghost. In Going Up, both the hotel lights and the elevator lights create a skull pattern. This is the first and only Terror Tales of the Park special where High Five Ghost has a story. The guests at the Halloween party include Eileen, Thomas, Johnny Skydiver, Quips, Monica, and Yuji. This episode marks the 6th and final installment in regular show's Terror Tales of the Park yearly specials, which is the black sheep of the specials, Terror Tales of the Park 6. It takes place before the events of Space Escape, but the characters are eaten at the end, making it non-canon. Fear Planet reveals some of the characters' worst fears. Benson's worst fear is sharks, and Skip's worst fear is flying disc freestylers. Chance, Sally, and Recap are also wearing costumes in this episode. Sally is the Mona Lisa, Chance is a cool bottle of Cool Ranch, and Recap is wearing a leather jacket. And on that note, I have recovered.
Now you know!
We're glad that you're better, Fu, but overall, the special actually brings out a lot of great specials of Halloween in regular show. And, to be honest, we all had fun. So we give Terror Tales a perfect 5.5 out of 5. And the special rating for Part 1 is 8 out of 10, Part 2, 4 out of 10, Part 3, 7 out of 10, Part 4, also 7 out of 10, Part 5, another 7 out of 10, and Part 6, 3 out of 10, which is why it's considered the black sheep of the specials.
Happy Halloween!
Next time on Team Smash Halloween Reviews, it's my Halloween specials. Please look forward to it.
Thank you for watching. What do you think? If you appreciate the content, please be sure to super smash that like button and be sure to subscribe to our channel. And please be sure to follow us on Instagram or my DeviantArt. And don't forget to leave a comment because we really accept kind thoughts. But we here do not allow any trolls or hurtful words or any other terrible meaning
unnecessary allowed. Otherwise, Ren Hoeing from Comedy Central's The Ren and Stimpy Show will hunt you down until the ends of Earth. Keep that in mind. Be sure to subscribe to our channels and click the notification bell. You're never going to miss a video the second it goes live on YouTube and Google. With that being said, thanks for watching and I'll see you all next time. Have a nice day!
Final results.